Maybe you have definitely noticed it, haven't you? In this period, I have talked a lot about it on my channel, on my content, on my Instagram, here and everywhere. The user is no longer the same. This is definitely a sentence that if you follow me, you have already heard me say N times. Or maybe if you are getting to know me first of all, welcome to this channel, and let's start talking a little more in depth about this topic. The user has changed, what happened, but you stay until the end because I won't repeat the same things to you. As you know, what I bring here on the channel is a deepening, a confidence, also about what I test every day, what I experiment, what I find every day, and so there has been a bit of an evolution of the situation. So let's take a step back, but above all, before we start, if topics like advertising and online business, media buying interest you, subscribe to this channel. Many of you watch my content and I'm very happy about that, but please subscribe because it is very important for me. So let's take a little step back, a little temporal jump. We all remember the pandemic. I do not think it is necessary to go back to what we experienced. It has been talked about and will certainly be talked about a lot more. However, the pandemic has changed many of our habits, even those related to our online activity. Many times I have said it during the pandemic, we found ourselves discovering more social media. Many people maybe had not yet used TikTok. They discover it there in that moment, forced at home. Actually, you can observe many influencers experiencing rapid growth. More courses are being sold and content is being sold on multiple platforms. In the series, you see me on TikTok and Instagram. There is time to occupy for both content producers and sellers as well as for users who consume it. This obviously leads to a significant change in habit in Italy. We are super distrustful. I'm not saying this like Ale Lorenzi. I'm basing it on studies that were recently reported by Repubblica, and actually we are distrustful. So if we see something online, if we were an American, maybe we would have a basic level of distrust, then maybe we would want to know more. In Italy, we are distrustful, 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 distrustful. Then we ask for information. Then after another threshold of distrust, maybe we buy. And all this nature that is within us has led us in the pandemic to see something, for example, a cooking course. And if before the pandemic, sure, we were always suspicious, but maybe we were a little more tied to impulse, right? That is, this thing can interest me, I take a little online tour, okay, I try to find out more, buy or not buy. During this long period of confinement at home where our habits have changed, yes, we see an online stimulus, we request information, but then we want to understand on other social profiles how reliable the person is, if there are testimonials, etc., etc., etc. And this has been a trend, a click that has changed the habits of all of us Italians and has been seen both in online businesses, in advertising campaigns, in online marketing many times. As I said at the beginning of this video, I talked about it. Nowadays, users may find themselves in front of a screen and spend a lot of time thinking before making a decision. While before maybe it was more impulsive, now we must follow them much more with a nurturing process that can occur in e-commerce as well as in info products. I'll give you a real case. People who come from my YouTube channel, for example, feel much closer to me. They appear to know me, they now understand how I present myself, what I communicate, what I share, and when they seek advice, they want to benefit from my service, coaching program, or consultation. They already have a brief incubation period. However, there are situations where maybe they don't know me, it's the very first time they see me, and there you feel all the threshold of distrust we were talking about earlier. So they need to be convinced, they need to be nurtured, materials need to be sent to facilitate the approach, etc., etc., etc. The same thing happens with e-commerce. Here, this was the photograph, let's say, between the pandemic and the period immediately after the post-pandemic, so a situation in which the user was actually super distracted and had a lot of free time became even more distrustful. We could say that the scissors of distrust have become even more rooted, and effectively an online action had been greatly extended. What did I notice today? Well, objectively, not only is this situation now the norm, that is, if there has been this change during the pandemic, as I was telling you before, at the beginning we were not like this, that is, we were always distrustful, but maybe, I repeat, just think about how many people didn't know TikTok or didn't use it, so maybe the channels for in-depth information were Google, YouTube, Facebook, IG, okay? They were highly verticalized. During the pandemic, users said, wait, I'll search on TikTok, then watch again on YouTube so I can start trusting, etc. Here, if there has been this change during the pandemic, now this is the basis. It means that when you go out there with your marketing, you know that this is your battlefield. So you will find a user in Italy in particular very distrustful. I repeat, I don't say it as a criticism at all. Also because I am Italian, so we are all in it, okay? You know, he's someone who needs to be on the move. You know, he's someone who needs to be nourished to understand where his money is going and trust. But nowadays, there is another step deeper and therefore even more in depth. One thing I have found managing e-commerce campaigns every day of info products, my own campaigns, comparing myself with entrepreneurs, comparing myself with colleagues overseas. You know, I study a lot from America, is that there is this starting point. So as we said, ground. Due to mistrust, the person runs, needs to be fed, etc. But now there is even more of a break, specifically in the pandemic. In addition to this situation, another thing happened that you have surely noticed or may not have heard about in my content, namely, everyone has exploded to do something online. Exploded. More influencers exploded. People who previously had not taken courses tried to launch them, tried to think like the whole cooking branch as in the midst of a pandemic started publishing online content, no but rightly, or the whole fitness branch with home workouts, yoga, all that big branch. Okay, also for example, my category, the marketing category, the drop shipping category, anyone went online during the pandemic, and this, if in the short term seemed like a novelty, in the long term obviously created a user who is super stimulated. That is, if you open Instagram today, FB, but also YT in the middle of this vid, before, after, during, or like in any other vid, you'll have seen ad campaigns. And maybe I would have also felt several times, in fact, LMK with a comment below, the feeling of saying this Mario Rossi who sells me STH is the same as this Luigi Rossi who is the same as this Fabrizio Rossi who is the same as this Nicola Rossi, etc., etc., etc. Do I say it right? Here. Obviously, you experience this as a user. I always say it before. Maybe we are media buyers who do advertising campaigns. We are people who use advertising campaigns. How many times do I see something I like online? I click on it, I go and see, I inform myself, etc., etc., many times. So this situation that you may have experienced in a particular niche, everyone nowadays experiences it. So there is an overexposure of stimuli. So we open Instagram, we open YouTube, we open Facebook, we open TikTok, whatever. And we find ourselves really full of ad campaigns. Moreover, the offer has also been amalgamated a bit. In today's world, the individuals who truly have an impact are those who possess additional qualities such as exceptional copy, creativity, strategy, and offerings in the realm of advertising and marketing campaigns. Here too, I'm talking to you about things that I have tested on myself, on me, on my business. If you want more in-depth topics, let me know with a comment and I will bring them to you without a doubt. I have tested a lot in these months. I continue to test because, as you know, as I always tell you, even in these contents, the testing phase for me is a non-negotiable phase. It must always be there. And I have experimented with countless videos, different hooks, creativity, animations, reels, videos, statics with only music, statics with only animations, videos, text, blah, 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 everything pertaining to my business. And the thing you notice more and more is this. Testing is fundamental, so it is very important because the user is reached by many offers and distracted by many distractions every day. So it is important to test, to try to always understand what is the look, what is that creativity, what is that copy that gives you that extra something. Nowadays, I text a lot with our agency. When we go to follow our clients, we put them in the conditions to test a lot during the month, okay, so that they can continuously test, have those that are the winning assets, but then continue to test and test, etc., etc., etc. And this is a very important aspect. The second thing you notice is that when you have really done a very thorough job on the buyer persona, and I haven't done YouTube Premium, and believe me, sometimes I would like to do it because it is full of advertisements, especially poor ones, but as a media buyer, due to my professional deformation, I don't feel like doing it to also observe what others do. Here I see a very low level in terms of advertising. I'm not talking so much about strategy. I'm talking about content and copy. They are all very similar. The editing is the same. There is actually no that element, customizing that element that makes you say, okay, that Mario Rossi and that Mario Rossi, if then I see 10 in a row, because maybe I spend 3 hours on YouTube and then I get 10, 15, 20 advertising messages. I remember that Mario Rossi, no, a situation is created in which everyone seems the same, and this is a damage in terms of marketing and advertising, because the number one rule is instead to create a differentiating message and make sure that the person recognizes you. Let's take any brand. I think of Garmin, you recognize it. Rolex, you recognize it. It's not that if you see Rolex, you confuse it with other brands, okay? And this is important. So when you go to work on the buyer persona for you, for your clients, etc., try to go more and more as deeply as possible, then transmit this thing, even in your copy, in your creative. As I was telling you, like, I have tested a lot and I continue to do so. Nowadays, I have 2 out of 3 creative bars that are killing it. They have been producing content for months because thanks to the test, I managed to understand which were the contents, the creative copies that were doing very well in my market. But then there was a huge work of entertainment. We also talked about it in a video here on the channel, so go and check it out. There has been a very important work of entertainment. There has been a very important work of buyer persona, of copy, of creativity, of hook, and everything else. So it is very important because nowadays, as we have said and repeated, the user is full of stimuli, so it becomes increasingly difficult to capture his attention. This is something we will need to prioritize extensively in the upcoming months. That is to comprehend what are those factors that cause the user to pause. Why are there so many stimuli, and what happens when you have so many stimuli and there is a flattening? You feel bored, and in boredom you skip, jump, you don't stop. It is clear that at the very moment we do advertising campaigns, marketing actions, this is a damage for us. That is, we would like everything except the user actually saying, I'm not interested. Rather, we would like the person to dwell on our ad, click and do the action they have to do. We must be increasingly aware that the situation is as it is, so we particularly have a distrustful user in the Italian market who conducts research and views us on multiple platforms. Considering that in today's world, users are bombarded with numerous stimuli, which fortunately due to the pandemic, everyone has moved online, but they have established a basic standard if desired. They all seem very similar. Actually, let me know too with a comment, but I'm sure you noticed this thing because it's obvious in any niche. Attention, I'm not talking about guru nonsense. We could also discuss the cat niche. Okay, there has truly been a flattening. What a more in-depth study of the look can do, a more in-depth study of the buyer persona, tests a lot, so really changes the look, changes the hooks, changes the first 3 seconds, reads the data, interprets all this work we do. And then a quality job comes out, because then when you find the creative that really brings a lot of traffic and quality, you really see the results change. And I don't say this in terms of a magic formula. I sell you the creativity with which you can absolutely win. No, this is the subject of many meetings, many consultations, of many meetings. Data processing, for example, I am very meticulous in interpreting the data. So actually understanding if they click, if they don't click, the time spent on the site, etc., etc. It is clear that we must not get lost in this sea of data and end up not doing anything anymore. But it is equally true that the data give us answers. So I want to understand if something works by analyzing the data or all the conditions to understand it, and then go in depth and precisely understand how I can improve all this. So, to recap, I recommend you always remember that the user nowadays hesitates a lot in front of choices. Reassurances are important, nourishment is important, abbreviating what the incubation time is. But we are also projected towards what the future will be. Many more inputs, some certainly will be skipped. It is physiological, it is normal. Okay, so many little things like improvised business. Even here I'm talking about all the niches will jump, and it's physiological, okay? Also because when the going gets tough, very few remain. And I say this from personal experience. Just look at when iOS 14 arrived in the world of media buying, for example. It turned everything upside down. All those Facebook ad experts before, there were a huge number. Then it started to see a handful because the going gets tough and many people went up in smoke. Okay, it's normal. I repeat, I say it with all the humility in the world. So let's say, okay, this is the situation. We are going in this direction. I have to focus on these things and then subscribe to the channel, because here you will always find a ton of content like this during the week. That's all from Leo Lorenzi. Thank you for watching this video, and see you in the next one. Hello?